very important aspect of becoming a better ukulele player is how to play scales. Scales are how we create melody and how we improvise. So we've done a lot of lessons on scales. And one question I constantly get, no matter when I do a lesson on scales, is, Tyler, how do you make a scale sound musical? Anytime I jam with it, it sounds like a scale. So today I'm going to give you 10 different ideas to help you make a scale sound like music. Printable tabs for this tutorial and all our tutorials by becoming a Patreon. You'll see links up here in the notes. I'll link to this specific tab pinned in the first comment. You'll also see the timestamps there so you can jump to any part in the lesson. More links in the description, including my Instagram. Go ahead and follow us over there. Tag us at Tenthumbs Pro and we'll share you playing this on our story. Plus my email if you want some one-on-one lessons via Zoom or Skype. Email me and we can set up a time. Okay, let's turn those scales into music. Go ahead and grab your ukulele, brain and attention span. Once you have those three things, follow me on in and let's turn these scales into solos. Let's do it. Okay, so our first two concepts are up. They are change, rhythm, and leaps. We are going to do these concepts one at a time, two at a time, and three at a time. And then at the end, we're going to put them all together into a solo. Okay, so these first two are called changing, rhythm, and leaps. Also, I have a massive blister that popped last night playing bass. So my hand hurts. It hurts to play. The show must go on, but I apologize if I don't play as to the standard that I normally play. Okay, so let's go ahead and just play through the first example, change rhythm. It sounds like this. And really what we're doing here is we're mixing straight time and swing time, or we're mixing regular notes with triplets. So we have a quarter note, which is the eighth note of the E string. We're going to let that ring for a quarter. 1, 2. And then we're going to play eighth notes. 2 and 7th fret. That's why I'm playing this with my middle finger. 1, 2 and. Play the 7th fret of the A string with my index finger, then the 8th with middle. So we get 1, 2 and then we go to triplets. So when you do a solo, you're not only doing eighths and only doing triplets. Switching back and forth between those times is something that makes your scale sound very, very musical. We'll go up. 1, 2 and 3 pola 4, and I'm going to use my index, middle, index on the 5th fret of the E string, and then my middle finger will come back and grab the 7th fret of the A. So we get 1, 2 and 3 pola 4, and that is how we mix triplets and straight time. So in your solos, when you're jamming, if you're doing eighths, throw in some triplets, or vice versa. If you're on a long triplet run, throw in some straight time. The next one is leaps. You will make your music sound less like a scale and more like a music if you occasionally skip several notes in the scale. Now you don't want to do this too frequently because it'll sound a little scattered, right? So you're going to use it occasionally. Here, the riff goes like this. We're going to go 3rd fret, open, 2nd fret, back to the open E, 2nd fret, and then the open A. So when we go from the 2nd fret here to the open A, we're skipping 1, 2, 2 notes. These ideas are coming from the A minor pentatonic because we're going to play a solo in A blues, all right? But these ideas you would apply to any scale in any situation. C major, classic tonality, yep. B minor, same idea. Okay, so we get 1 and 2 and 3, 4. All right, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And there we just skip 2 notes. You can do bigger leaps. So feel free to experiment with that. They add interest and they definitely grab the listener's attention. Okay, our next concepts we're going to bring up 2. We're going to call it avoid the one, hit the one, and motifs. So avoiding the one. What do I mean by avoiding the one? A lot of times when you're first learning, you have the habit of starting your riffs right on the 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And coming in on that 1. You can make your scale sound less like a scale and make it sound more musical if you start your riff before the 1. So here I have it on the and. 1, 2, 3, and I'm starting my riff before I get to the 1. that adds a lot of interest. Think of the guitar solo in Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton. That bend comes in on the 1. Do, 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 1. We're kind of doing the same thing. We're going and 4 and 1. But we're going to play the 1 instead of the 5th fret. We're going to hammer on 3 to 5. So we go 2, 4, 3, 3, hammer 5. One, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that is avoiding the 1 because we don't start on the 1, but it is also hitting the 1. And what do I mean by that is a lot of times we have the tendency to start on the 1, but we should think about not starting on the 1, but it's a good place to land. So we land on the 1, and that's what I mean by hitting the 1. Do, 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 do. Now, just like avoiding the 1 where you start, it's also a good idea to occasionally not land on the 1. And you'll see that with the next riff, we add one more note. So if you look at your solo and all of your licks are starting on the first beat and finishing on the first beat, mixing that up is a great way, easy way to quickly add some dynamics to your solo. Start before the first beat sometimes, land on the and after the 1, finish your lick on the second beat, finish your lick on the third beat, all right? Don't always hit that 1, but don't eliminate all of them and never hit the 1 because it is a powerful tool, and when used sparingly, it's going to be even more powerful. As we see with our second lick, we go back, and after the hammer on, we play the 3rd fret again. So we get all right, so we can see both. Now those 2 licks are very, very similar. That is called creating a motif. When you play a lick and vary the last note, the last 2 notes, when you make something sound really similar and add a little variance to it, you're creating a motif, which is something that your listener can grab onto. And that's very, very musical. If you think about it, all melodies have some level of motifs in them. As you're singing them, kind of listen for those patterns that are repeated. Okay, so if we play through this whole lick, we get 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4. All right, next concept. The next concept is 5 ornamentations, letting it breathe, and repeating notes. So we have 3 concepts in this one. The 5 ornamentations you have available to you, you have slide, hammer on, pull off, bend, vibrato. And those 5 things are going to make your scale sound much more vocal. When you make the scale sound more vocal, you make it sound more musical and less like a scale. So the first lick actually has all of the ornamentations. We're going to slide 3 to 5 with our ring finger. And then we're going to do a quarter bend here on the 3rd fret. Bending deserves its own video, definitely. Well, bending deserves several videos on its own because it's such a big concept. So I'll put a link up here we did to Bending 101. Actually, better yet, in the description, because I'm also going to put a link to the hammer-ons and a link to the pull-offs that we've done so far. Okay, so slide 3 to 5, quarter bend, which is just a baby bend. You're not actually bending all the way up to the 4th fret. You're just nudging it forward. And then back to the 5th fret, where you're going to play 3 notes in 1 hit. You're going to pluck the 5th fret, pull to the 3rd fret, and then hammer back to the 5th fret. And it's a triplet, so we're also mixing our rhythm. So we get 1 and 2 pola 3. 3rd fret, middle finger on the 4th fret of the C string. Then you're going to come up with your ring finger, or better yet, index finger. 5, 5, 5, 4, and 1. And there I played the 5th fret 3 times in a row. One thing that makes your scale sound more like a scale is you're constantly moving through it. You can sit on a note and play that same note multiple times. That's going to definitely give your scale a lot more musical quality, and it's going to sound much less like a scale and much more like music. 4 and 1. And I know that sounds crazy because you think, well, doesn't that make it sound more boring? It actually, quite the opposite, makes it sound more interesting. Then on the first beat, we're giving it vibrato, locking in with my hand, making my hand stiff, and moving from my wrist. Vibrato could also use its own video entirely. So we get 1 and 2 pola, 3, 4, 4 and 1. And the reason I'm using my index is because of that vibrato. Now that's a tight vibrato. That's what B.B. King called a hummingbird vibrato. You could use your ring finger and get this big wide vibrato too. All right, so vibrato varies a lot. When you're watching your favorite guitar players play, and I say guitar players because you're going to see more guitar players soloing than you will ukulele players, pay attention to the way they use their vibrato and try to apply it to your playing. Okay? 1 and 2 pola, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3. Then here we're going to go 5, 4, 5, back to that note, and we're going to let that note play out for an entire measure. This is what I call letting it breathe. The notes you don't play are as important as the notes that you do play. Now, in a blues solo, you're probably not going to let your note ring out for a full measure. Sometimes you might. Sometimes maybe even more than a measure, to keep in mind. But most of the times you probably won't. Sometimes it'll be 3 beats, 2 beats. But occasionally you have to let it breathe. Occasionally you have to stop and rest and pretend that your ukulele has lungs. Now, this happens more naturally for saxophone players, for trumpet players, for clarinet players, because they actually do have to breathe. So we're kind of trying to emulate that. Think of if you have to breathe, where would you breathe? And that's how you would give these notes space or let them breathe. So you would get 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so these two measures together. All right, you're doing great. Another huge way to make your scale sound more like music and less like a scale is double stops. Double stops means you're playing 2 notes at the same time. And you can do that anywhere in the scale. So we're going to do it in just one place, but experiment with these scale shapes and find notes that are on top of each other or one over and play them at the same time. It gives a lot more thickness and a lot more depth to your solo. We're going to do it in a triplet fashion, meaning 5 and 4. We're going to slide from the 3rd fret to the 4th fret, up a fret. I'm using my middle finger on the C, ring finger on the A string, or E string. Then we're going to do triplets. 1 pola, 2 pola, 3 pola, 4 pola, 1 pola, 2 pola, 3 pola, 4. All right, but experiment with double stops all over. And then finally, the last one here, we have 2 different items, adding full chord shapes to your solos and arpeggios. So occasionally, you can throw in a full chord or a triad into the solo. Here, we're going to play this D7 shape, bar that 2nd fret and get your middle finger on the A string. We're going to pluck the A string, 1, 2, 3. And on the 3rd beat, we're going to pluck the D. This particular lick will make more sense in the context of the final solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you can just throw in those full chord shapes in the solo like that. If you ever switch over to guitar, you'll see that these 4 notes are tuned the same on the guitar from the 5th fret. So these chord shapes that you use on the ukulele sound great when you play them on the guitar. A lot of times I'm playing rhythm ideas and my guitar friends are like, whoa, how did you come up with that really cool rhythm idea? And I tell them, this is just me leaning on years of playing ukulele and seeing the relationship between the 2 fretboards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and D7 arpeggio, second fret 2 times, second fret of the E 2 times, fifth fret of the E string 2 times, then down here to the third fret of the A. Now, we have an F sharp in this arpeggio. That F sharp note is not in our A minor pentatonic. Pentatonic only has 5 notes, so it's a smaller scale. So, but also, I don't want to just limit it to that. There's these non-diatonic ideas. There's times when you're going to play notes that come outside of your scale as well. So be aware of that as you're improvising and as you're jamming. If you jump more into the chord tones and you lean more into what's going on with the harmony, doing arpeggios and hitting chord tones and these ideas, there'll be times when you actually leave the scale. That's okay. Don't be scared to leave the scale. There's a lot of cool ideas and cool notes outside of the scale. Experiment with that. It adds a lot of musicality to what you got going on. So these last 2 riffs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right. So why don't we put up this 12-bar blues solo and go through it that has all of these ideas. These are the first 4 measures, but they look like 5 because we have that kickoff. So we're gonna go 3 and 4, 3 and 4, well, 3 and 4 and 1 and 4 and 1. 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4, triple up, boom. So the first 2 measures, we are using the 1 idea where we start before the 1, and we are also mixing rhythm. We're adding a triplet to it, and we've created a motif. So those first 2 measures, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 pola 1. We go into that triplet move 4 times in a row. 2 pola, 3 pola, 4 pola, 1 pola, 2 pola. Continuing to mix the rhythm and adding a double stop. Then we're gonna go slide 5 to 3, ornamentation, open E, 3rd fret, open, and then the next note that's gonna come up is the 3rd fret of the A string. So we have a leap. So let's play through these 4 together, all right? Now, the reason we move through them so quickly is because of all the other activities we've gone through. This should be a little easier for you. If you feel like it's too quick, feel free to hit pause and don't move on until you get these 4 measures. You can also use the YouTube feature. It's in the bottom corner in the settings to slow this down and play it even slower if you need to be. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 pola 1, 2, 3 pola, 4 pola, 1 pola, 2 pola, 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, the next 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then we go to our A7, 1 and then we're gonna really let this note breathe. Now you also want to give it a quarter bend. So we're going to let it breathe and we're going to let it bend a little bit. So this first 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. Next little run up here, we have 3 hammer 5, little bend, 5, 3, and then we're going to slide 5 to 8. Then we're going to get 7, 5. All right. So we're getting ready for the turnaround. That's kind of a transition lick, and it's pushing us through the shapes. One thing that I considered doing for this video is saying multiple shapes. That just kind of happens naturally in these solos, but definitely an element that you want to try to memorize all 5 minor pentatonic shapes, major pentatonic shapes, minor scales, major scales, all 5 shapes, because you want to be able to fluidly move from one shape to another changing between these shapes, doing it fluidly, doing it with slides will add a lot of musicality and take away from the scalier sound that you're trying to get away from as well. Okay, so these 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and. All right, a little sloppy. Next 4 measures. 8th fret of the E string with your ring finger, and here we're going to come down and play the 7th fret, back to the 8, back to the 7. 1, 2, and 3, 4. And I'm emphasizing this E note because the harmony is in E7. So that's another thing, but I thought about doing that too, talking about chord tones. Chord tones are the notes in the scale and in the chord that you're playing over, but I decided to save that for an entirely separate video completely on its own, because that is, yes, it does make it sound less like a scale, but that has more to do with getting your scale to stick with the chords, which is overlap, similar concepts, but not exactly the same, right? So we get 1, 2, and 3, 4. Then we get triplets. 1, pola, 2, 3. So those 2 measures. And then we get the turnaround. All right, so we're doing here, open A string, plucking 4 and 4 at the same time. Then we're gonna play middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the C, and we're gonna do straight time. We're gonna play the 4th fret of the A, and then the 3rd fret of the C string. Move it another one over. We're gonna go into triplets now and do 4, 2, 4. Then open C string, hammer on the 1st fret, and then your index finger, which is loose, will play the 1st fret there. So we get 1, 2, 3, and 4 pola, 1 and po. From there, instead of muting and doing the up like I did here, you're actually going to mute and come up on an F7, half step down, then down on an F7. So you get 1, 2, 3, and 4 pola, 1 pola, 2, and 3. And then I like to mute on the 4th beat to help keep me time when I go back to the top. But you could also let that ring 1, 3, 4, and 3, 4. So just the turnaround again one more time. 1, 2, 3, and 4 pola, 1 pola, boom, boom, boom. Yeah. Then we're in the top. Okay, so let's try to play the whole solo together. All right, folks, that was it. Some solo strategies to make it sound like your scale is not a scale, but rather actual real music. I hope you dig it, apply it to your own playing, and take it slow. It's not going to just come overnight. Be conscious of these things, really be aware of them, and you'll see a lot of progress in your playing pretty quickly. But remember, it doesn't come overnight, so just be aware of them, incorporate them in your playing, maybe as a warm-up, and you'll get there. All right, take care, rock and roll.
Excellent, everyone. Thank you so much for watching to the very end of the tutorial. Here at TenthumbsPro.com, we appreciate you trusting your learning with us. We really want to do our best to help you take your playing from here to here, or from here to here, or from here to here, or wherever it's at. We really want you to improve. So make sure you hit like with this lesson if it helped you out,
Think about becoming a Patreon. It will accelerate your learning, and it's cheaper than a cheap cheeseburger. Plus, you can give more and get some other rewards. Subscribe, ring the bell so you never miss a lesson, and we'll catch you next Wednesday or Saturday for ukulele and Monday for guitar. Take care and have a lovely day. Rock and roll.